Well, the Seahawks enter Week 10 with the lead in the NFC West and a recently bolstered passing game after trading for wide receiver Rashid Shaheed. At 6-2, Seattle are tied for the best record in the NFC, and their plus 81 point differential is the third best in the league this season. But how dominant can they be? Well, midway through the season, Sportsline has already painted a pretty clear playoff picture with the model crowning Seattle NFC West champions, giving the Seahawks a 41.7% chance of winning the division. Sportsline has three teams in the division making the postseason. The Rams, who the model projects have a 40.8% chance to win the NFC West. They've got them in the wild card in this spot, and the Niners with a 17.1% chance of a division crown, but a projected wild card berth with a 76.1% chance to make the playoffs. Well ahead of the Bears, who are projected as the first team out at 41.5% chance of making the postseason. Now, for more on all of this math and numbers and midway point of the season playoff projection, welcoming in CBS NFL writer John Breech. Now, John, you recently wrote about Sportsline's projections for CBSSports.com. Let's start with this NFC playoff picture, though. The model has Seattle winning the NFC West. Do you agree?
Madeline, I do not agree. But before I rip the model apart, I would like to give it some credit. The first weekend of November last year, the model gave its projections. It hit 12 out of 14 playoff teams. So the model works. But for this particular spot, I'm going to take the Los Angeles Rams to win the NFC West. I think even when you look at the percentages right now, it's close to a coin toss where the Seahawks are around 43%, the Rams are around 40%. So it is pretty close. And I think one thing that is working against the Rams is the fact that they have the second most difficult remaining strength of schedule. So you look at that. That means they have a lot of tough games left between now and that first weekend in January when they play their final game of the season. But when you look at the makeup of this team, they can win these big games. They can win these hard games, and that starts this Sunday against the San Francisco 49ers. That is a huge game because they've already lost once to the 49ers. You can't afford to get swept by a division rival if you want to win your division. And I think for me, the biggest difference between the Seahawks and the Rams is Matthew Stafford versus Sam Darnold. I just trust Matthew Stafford, a Super Bowl winning quarterback, more than I trust Sam Darnold. And to be honest, this is kind of shaping up to turn out like last year's NFC North race, where Sam Darnold was playing out of his mind all season. The Vikings looked great all year, and they just could not shake off the Detroit Lions, end up facing them in Week 18. Obviously, Darnold faltered in that game, worst game of the season, and the Lions won the division. Well, the Seahawks and Rams still face each other twice, and those two games will likely decide the division. And I'm riding the Rams right now with Matthew Stafford in that offense.
Hey, I mean, Seattle's quarterback Sam Darnold is setting career highs in nearly every passing category. But to your point, the Sportsline model has the Seahawks and the Rams at a razor's edge right there, both likely making the postseason this year. But let's look at the model's AFC playoff picture. Sportsline has the Bills claiming the top spot in the AFC, despite currently sitting behind the Patriots in the division. New England finishing the season with the first wild card spot in this projection. Sportsline also has the Denver Broncos winning the AFC West. Now that notably would end the Chiefs' reign of 9 straight division titles. So Breech, do you think Denver has what it takes to win the AFC West this season?
I am on board with this. I do think the Denver Broncos can absolutely win the AFC West. I know that we sleep on the Chiefs whenever they get off to these slow starts. You kind of write them off, and you're thinking there's no way they can possibly win the division again. And then they go out and win it 9 years in a row. And then you start to question yourself anytime you question them. Well, I'm not going to question myself. I absolutely think the Denver Broncos can hold on to this division lead. They have looked very, very good this year. This doesn't look like a team that has very many weaknesses. I don't think they're going to falter down the stretch. One thing working in their favor is they're the only team in the AFC West that has a remaining strength of schedule against teams who are collectively under 500 when you look at the overall combined records. And then you look at the fact that the Chiefs are 2 games back, and that is not easy to make up when you only have 8 games left on the schedule. So Denver and Kansas City still have to play each other twice, Week 11, Week 17. If the Broncos win just one of those games, now you're talking about being 3 games up with 7 games left, and that almost, you would need an epic collapse from the Broncos. Sean Payton's not going to let that happen. Bo Nix isn't going to let that happen. So I think this is the year. I agree with the projection that the Chiefs' reign atop the AFC West finally ends. But they do get to the playoffs. So Chiefs fans, don't send me any mean emails.
All right, Week 11, Week 17, Denver, Kansas City. Those are going to be some grab your popcorn matches. You're going to want to see those as this playoff race shakes out. Now, a notable team missing from that AFC playoff projection, the Baltimore Ravens. Yes, they had a slow start to the season, and yes, historically, only 4 teams that started 1-5 have reached the playoffs since the 1970 merger. But Breech, at 3-5, the Ravens are second in the AFC North and gaining optimism as the return of Lamar Jackson nears. So, do you agree with Sportsline's projection that Baltimore will fall short of making the playoffs?
Shockingly, I do agree with Sportsline that the Ravens end up missing the postseason. Everybody loves the Ravens right now. The last time we saw them on the field was that Thursday night game. Lamar Jackson looked fantastic, threw 4 touchdown passes in that 28-6 win over the Dolphins. But at 3-5, my issue with the Ravens is that their defense still isn't great. It's got a lot of cracks. You look at those 3 losses they had with Lamar Jackson there earlier in the season. They gave up more than 37 points in all 3 of those losses with Lamar Jackson. So we've been talking about the Bengals, how it doesn't matter how many points they score, they end up losing somehow because their defense is so bad. The Ravens defense isn't that bad, but it's still hard because you have to win a shootout every week when you're playing a good team. And there are a lot of good teams left on the Ravens schedule. And the big part here is that they just don't have any margin for error. At 3-5, they're going to have to go 7-2 just to get the 10 wins, which is probably what it's going to take to win this division. You're talking about games against the Patriots and Packers and Steelers to end the season. That's their last 3 games. That's brutal. And then obviously 2 games still on the docket against the Steelers, which will probably decide the division. And you know what? They still have 2 games against the Bengals. Joe Flacco might be out for revenge, so I can't just automatically give those 2 to the Ravens. I just have a tough time seeing the Ravens going 7-2 in their final 9 games, and I think the Steelers might be better than people think. We saw them beat the Colts on Sunday. They're getting a little bit better. I like Pittsburgh to win the division, and Baltimore left out of the playoffs.
Baltimore left out in the cold despite the optimism with Lamar Jackson's return. But hey, you know what? That's why they play the games. John Breech, thanks so much for the insight. An action-packed slate of Week 10 football on CBS. The 1 p.m. slate headlined by a clash of MVP contenders, Baker Mayfield and Drake May, as the Patriots visit the Bucs. Then at 4, newly named starting quarterback Jacoby Brissett and the Cardinals take on the surging Seahawks. Catch all the action on CBS and Paramount+. Plus, flip it to CBS Sports HQ for pre- and post-game coverage.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you.
Big news coming out of the NFL. A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
With highlights.
What a finish at the final round of play.
And in-depth analysis.
Can they three-peat? Tony Romo joins the conversation.
What can you say about this game?
When you need your sports in a snap,
we're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
Find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.